Young and the Restless. Summer doubles down on dirty deception. After Summer and Kyle's divorce, remember she started seeing Detective Chance Chancellor, Connor Floyd? But things went south during the investigation into Heather Stevens's, Vale Bloom, death. Summer didn't like the way Chance handled it when he just laser-focused on her brother Daniel Romalotti, Michael Graziadei, as the top suspect. And he didn't seem to do a lot more investigating into anything else. That's despite the fact that Sharon Newman, Sharon Case, had clearly framed Daniel. The evidence was so clearly planted, and Summer, she just couldn't get past it. So first, Summer called a break on dating Chance on Young and the Restless. And now she's called it quits, told her dad, nope, never happening. So Summer's single, and she wants Kyle back. Rather than, going and finding a new man of her own, Summer wants what Claire has. Which makes sense because Summer never wanted the divorce from Kyle. He was the one that called off their marriage because if you recall, Summer lied to him after she knew Phyllis Summers, Michelle Stafford, was alive. And that lie was keeping Kyle's mom, Diane Jenkins, Susan Walters, behind bars. So it was pretty much Summer and her covering for Phyllis that torched her marriage. Kyle and Claire. A budding romance under threat. And now Kyle has moved on Young and the Restless. He's very happy with Claire. And Summer cannot stand it. The faces she makes when she sees Claire with Kyle are so obviously petty and over the top. It's pretty funny to watch them. Summer is constantly giving Claire the stink eye. And now, Summer is playing dirty and dirtier as she is actively sabotaging their relationship. Summer's dirty tactics. Sabotaging dates and manipulating emotions. Because this week on Young and the Restless, just as Claire and Kyle settle into their dinner date at GCAC, Summer makes this big move. She interrupts, and she's claiming she and Kyle have to talk to their son Harrison Locke, Redding Munsell, right that minute. Summer insists they've got to tell Harrison that Phyllis is missing before he hears it somewhere else. And Kyle, of course, thinks this can wait. This is not the first time he said this can wait. But Summer has just pushed, and Summer insists, so Kyle reluctantly goes with her to see Harrison. Maybe it's that cowboy shirt Summer's got on, and Kyle thinks she's a lady sheriff that he's got to obey. I don't know, maybe he's just blinded by Summer's awful taste in outfits on Young and the Restless. That shirt is truly terrible, but whatever the reason, Kyle leaves Claire in the dining room. She tells him it's okay to go, and Summer wanted to ruin their date. Of course, she knew Kyle would cave if she played the Harrison card. Claire pushes back. And then when Claire said, "I'll wait down here for you," then of course, Summer was encouraging her not to. Oh, it's going to be too long, just go. And she's trying so hard to make sure that Kyle can't get back to his date with Claire after this talk with Harrison. But it's a fail. And despite her obvious manipulation, Claire can spot this a mile away. It's obvious to Claire, it's obvious to me, not so obvious to Kyle. And that's because Summer's ex always shows her a lot of grace on Young and the Restless. He gives her the benefit of the doubt, especially when it's anything to do with Harrison. And of course, Summer knows that. So she keeps emotionally manipulating Kyle, and she's wielding Harrison like a weapon. She's trying to and kill his relationship with his new girlfriend on. Doubling down. Summer's escalating attempts to win back Kyle on Young and the Restless. And now we're going to see Summer doubling down by using this Phyllis crisis. She's going to try and get comfort and closeness from Kyle while also blocking Claire. And the timing of Summer amping up her antics is no coincidence. It's hot on the heels of Kyle telling Summer he is falling in love with Claire. And while he and Claire haven't said "I love you," not yet, Kyle did tell Summer that's where it's heading. So Summer realizes she's got to act fast. She has got to kill this thing between Kyle and Claire. Or at least slow it down before they get to that "I love you" phase on Young and the Restless. Because then comes engagement, marriage, and then she's probably got no chance of stopping it. And if Summer respected Kyle as a man, as a person, as someone she cares about, she would accept that he has chosen Claire, and she'd back off. But nope, Summer's going to do the exact opposite and is probably going to use any means necessary to tear them apart. Much like her mom Phyllis. We can clearly see that it's all about what Summer wants and also about her not wanting Claire Newman to have Kyle. Like you don't want to play with the toy, but when someone else takes the toy, and you're a toddler, you want to take that toy back. And it appears to be kind of both of these things motivating her increasingly bad behavior on Young and the Restless. Summer's history of selfishness. Echoes of Phyllis's ruthless tactics. And we all know Summer's selfish, and she has been for a long time. You may recall a few years back on Young and the Restless when Kyle had fallen for sweet, working-class Lola Rosales. She ran a food truck, and then later, she was the head chef at Society, and Kyle was deeply in love with Lola. But then she had that medical crisis. She went into liver failure, and the only match in town was Summer. So she finally agreed to donate a piece of her liver to save Lola's life, but the price was steep. She would only donate if Kyle agreed to marry her. Talk about a grimy move. She was just going to let Lola die if he didn't marry her. So yeah, Kyle married Summer, and then she donated part of her liver to Lola, and the sweet chef survived. But Kyle couldn't stay away from Lola because he truly loved her, and he walked out on that marriage with Summer. Eventually, Lola left because the actress got the role of Supergirl, and Kyle wound up back with Summer. I mean, how ruthless do you got to be to hold Lola's life in your hand and use it to blackmail Kyle into marriage? Summer Newman really is her mother's daughter. Deja vu. Claire the new target of Summer's jealousy on Young and the Restless. And now here we are once again with a nice girl like Claire. You know, aside from her trying to kill the Newmans. And Kyle's falling hard and fast. Just like he did with Lola. And there's actually other similarities there. There's something that Claire had, something that Lola had, that Summer just doesn't have and never will. Something that Summer can't compete with, that Kyle just can't resist. Maybe it's their innate goodness, maybe it's their tough backstories on Young and the Restless. While Summer has grown up very spoiled and entitled, but there's a big difference there, and that's what draws Kyle in. So we're going to see an escalation soon with Summer as Kyle gets closer to Claire and is giving away more of his heart. Summer's going to ramp up her efforts to tear them apart. Its fair share of lies, love triangles, and power plays. But this week, the spotlight falls squarely on Summer Newman, and her dangerously growing web of deceit. Once known for her radiant charm and honest heart, Summer is now treading in darker waters. Her latest choices aren't just about survival. They're about control. And as she doubles down on her dirty deception, no one, not Kyle, not Phyllis, not even Nick, will see the full storm she's unleashing until it's too late. Summer's breaking point. It all started with heartbreak, the kind that twists love into something sharp. After Kyle's endless flip-flopping between loyalty to her and compassion for Audra Charles, Summer finally hit her breaking point. She'd fought for her marriage, forgiven his mistakes, and swallowed her pride more times than she could count. But now, the pain had curdled into fury. Late one night, in her penthouse overlooking the city, Summer poured herself a glass of wine and opened the folder she'd been keeping hidden in her drawer. A dossier of information she'd quietly gathered over weeks. Emails, transaction records, and a few compromising photos involving Audra and someone tied to Newman Media. This isn't revenge, she told herself softly. It's justice. But as the clock ticked past midnight, even Summer couldn't ignore how dangerous her plan had become. The first move. The next morning, Summer arrived at Chancellor Winters under the guise of pitching a collaboration between Marchetti and their fashion division. But behind her poised smile was a sharper agenda. She knew Audra would be there. When Audra strutted into the meeting, exuding her usual confidence, Summer's lips curved into a faint smirk. Summer Newman, Audra said, crossing her arms. To what do we owe this surprise visit? Oh, I just thought it was time for some transparency, Summer replied smoothly. She slid a sleek envelope across the table. You might want to read this before we continue. Audra's eyes flickered as she pulled out the contents. Her expression hardened. Where did you get this? Does it matter? Summer said, tilting her head. What matters is how fast word spreads in this town. I'd hate for Devon or Lily to find out about your little backdoor deal with Tucker McCall. The room went cold. Audra's polished demeanor faltered, only for a moment, before she regained control. You think you can blackmail me? Summer leaned forward. I think I just did. That was her first move. And it wouldn't be her last. Kyle's growing suspicion. Meanwhile, Kyle Abbott could sense something shifting. Summer had been distant, distracted, but not broken. In fact, she seemed stronger. And that scared him. At Society, he met with his mother, Diane Jenkins, hoping for advice. I don't know what's going on, he admitted. Summer's not herself. It's like she's plotting something. Diane gave a knowing look. Maybe she's just done being the victim, Kyle. You hurt her. Don't expect her to wait around for your clarity. Kyle frowned. You think she's getting revenge? Diane sighed, sipping her coffee. If she is, maybe you deserve it. But if she's playing in Tucker or Audra's world, she's in over her head. That struck a nerve. Kyle knew Summer's strength, but he also knew her impulsiveness. And if she was plotting something dangerous, the fallout could destroy them both. Nick and Phyllis catch on. It didn't take long before Nick Newman started noticing changes in his daughter's behavior. When Summer showed up at Newman Enterprises acting suspiciously upbeat, Nick's instincts kicked in. "You're not just here to check in on me," he said, narrowing his eyes. "What are you really up to?" Summer smiled sweetly. "Just focusing on my future, Dad." "Don't worry." But Nick did worry. He called Phyllis later that day. "She's up to something," he warned. "And I don't think it's good." Phyllis sighed heavily. "Apple doesn't fall far from the tree, huh? You know, I tried to warn her that revenge has a way of backfiring." Nick's tone softened. "Phyllis, you've made your share of mistakes, but Summer looks up to you. If she's following in your footsteps, scheming, you need to talk to her before it's too late." Phyllis hesitated, torn between pride and fear. Deep down, she knew her daughter's fire came from her, and that scared her more than anything. Audra strikes back. Summer's victory over Audra was short-lived. A few days later, she received a cryptic text. "You shouldn't have poked the bear." Then chaos followed. Newman Media's social feed was flooded with leaks, ones that pointed fingers at Marchetti for mishandling a confidential partnership deal. Summer was blindsided. She stormed into Audra's office the next morning. "You think you can play me?" Summer hissed. Audra smiled coolly. "Sweetheart, you started this game. I'm just better at it." But Audra didn't realize Summer had already anticipated retaliation. She slid her phone across the table, revealing a video recording. Audra's own admission of corporate sabotage, recorded at a private event where she'd had too much champagne. "You may be better at the game," Summer said, her voice steady, "but I play for keeps." Audra's smile vanished. The price of deception. Summer walked out victorious, but inside, a storm was raging. Each lie she told, each move she made, took her further from the person she once was. By the time she got home that night, she couldn't even look in the mirror. Phyllis showed up unannounced, concern etched across her face. "What's going on, honey? You're scaring me." Summer tried to brush it off, but her voice cracked. "I had to do it, Mom. They were all using me, walking over me. I couldn't just sit back anymore." Phyllis cupped her daughter's face. "I get it. But you don't win by becoming them. You win by being better." Tears welled in Summer's eyes. For the first time in weeks, the walls began to crumble. "What if I've already gone too far?" Phyllis sighed softly. "Then you fix it. Before it fixes you."